Welcome to Sasquatch and Sourdough, the podcast where we embark on a journey into the depths of the unknown.
The mystery of life.
Weaving together threads of ancient scripture.
What do you mean, biblical?
Tales of high strangeness.
Tell them about the Twinkie.
Whether you're a seeker of truth.
We believe it's the heart of the house.
Or simply hungry for a good story.
What about the Twinkie?
Sasquatch and Sourdough invites you to join us on a journey of discovery, wonder, and deliciousness.
They feel your methods, your theories are
Spooky.
So grab your backpack, sharpen your senses,
Do you think I'm spooky?
and prepare to explore the sacred mysteries of our highly strange world like never before.
And that is the whole problem with aliens.
Well, welcome back to Sasquatch and Sourdough. I am your host, Christina, and today I have a very special guest from across the pond. She is our first international guest ever. So from Shell's Spooky Stories, I have Shell. Welcome, Shell.
Hi, thanks for having me. I feel really honoured now. I didn't realise I was the actual first from across the pond.
Yeah, I saved that. So, yes, welcome. We're having...
I've got a lot to live up to now.
Nope. No, your stories are fantastic. So I found you on Instagram, and you just have a great presence. Like you tell these fantastic little just quick ghost stories, and I just absolutely love them. Your sound design is great. I was telling you earlier that your voice sounds exactly the way that like it is in this like telling of all of these awesome stories. So I just had to have you on and hear your side of the stories, because when we were chatting, I kind of found out that a lot of these that you come up with are close to home. Is that still kind of true?
Yeah, a lot of what I write about is taken from my, but like there's some that have been done from dreams that I've had. So I have some really weird dreams. Which I thought they're just perfect for like weird content. So write them down and remember them for another time. They're things that happened to me like growing up, things that I've noticed now. I'm a paranormal investigator, so I take some experience from what we get doing that. And then some are just like things that, I mean, I haven't released it yet, but there's a story that I was watching Cabin Masters.
Oh, yes.
The Bane Cabin Masters, and we became obsessed with that. And I was like, it'd be a really good ghost story if like someone went to Maine and they got on the cabin, they got this old cabin, and they found out it was haunted. And I won't spoil the rest of the story, but so I used that program as like a bit of inspiration to like make another story. So it's just whatever comes to me, really. My mum always said I had a really good imagination and I should tell stories. So it's just taken me 40 years to do what she told me.
Well, it was an awesome advice, and I think moms probably know best. But like that, yeah, I love that you pull from your actual experiences and then, you know, imagination too. So like sometimes if you don't say like this is actually true, I can't tell if it's like real or, you know what I mean? Like if it's an encounter or... You definitely do.
I said to Tom, my lovely podcast manager, producer, I said to him when we first met, I was like, I want it to be like so immersive that people don't know whether it's true or false. And like it has that psychological thing of questioning whether, is it real? Is it not?
Yeah. Well, you do a great job of that, because sometimes I'm just like, wait, is this a real place? Or like, I have to go in the description and look. So we do have a mutual friend, our friend from the Let's Get Freaky podcast, Tommy Cullum. So you just, I think, had an interview with him, and I was on his show previously. So we have a mutual connection.
Yes, he interviewed me, and then I thought he was the first one I actually the first person that interviewed me once I like came out in my spookiness. So I thought it was only fair that I have him as my first guest when I started reviewing people. So he is amazing.
Perfect. Yeah, it worked out. He's so great. I don't think he realizes like how good he is at what he does. Like he just naturally has, I think, a knack for interviewing people.
Yeah.
And kind of letting people, tell their story. Like he asked me a question that was just unbelievable that really got my wheels turning. I was telling him kind of like my paranormal experience and that turned into a faith journey. And he asked me like how I knew that like that I had like accepted Jesus and he had changed my heart. And it like totally blew my mind because no one had asked that. And it turned into like a whole other encounter and story. So that's not something that like I really want to get into right now because I want to hear your story. But I can't wait to tell him that and be like, dude, you have no idea like what a great interviewer you are.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I kind of told him that this afternoon actually. I was like, you're just amazing at what you do. And yeah, he has a real good knack, like you say, because I was talking to him about something and then I just like flippantly mentioned something as an answer to a question that he said. And then it took us down this whole new path. And I was like, okay, are we really going to talk about this? Okay, then.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, guys, definitely check him out and check out Shell's spooky stories. But Shell, I want to hear about kind of how you got into this. Like, were you always like as a little girl, were you interested in like ghost stories and things like that? Or was it an experience?
Yeah. So I always say that my journey started before I was actually even born, because my great grandmother, she's Scottish, so she goes down like the Celtic folklore, and she used to actually be someone who used to read people's tea leaves in her village in Scotland.
Oh wow!
So people used to go to her for their advice and all sorts of things. She was a very wise woman. And when my mum was pregnant with me, they were all in the living room, and a crow came down the fireplace and came out, and it was like flapping around and things. My mum hates birds, so she was like hysterical.
Oh my god!
Then my great grandmother was like, "It's an omen! It's an omen!" and like started like losing her mind. So I think that's where my journey first began, in the womb. And then from then, when I was born, all the nurses used to like come around and flock around me, and they were like, "She's been here before. She's been reincarnated, and she's so alert and she's looking around." And
Oh, that's wild.
yeah, it's bizarre. So since then, I started to see spirits when I was younger. I had one that was in our home called Peter. I referred to him so much that people actually thought he was my brother. I don't have a brother. I have a sister, but I don't have a brother. And I remember Peter being like this older, what I would probably say about 18, 19 now, or early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And he was always like in a uniform, like a military uniform. And I would like play with him. I would get my mum to set a dinner space for him because he was, in my eyes, as human as everyone else in the house.
Oh wow!
He just was someone who used to just live with us, but no one else could see him or hear him or speak to him, and I just didn't really understand it because I just thought I had like the coolest friend ever, and was in my own little bubble.
Do you remember being able to actually see him in form?
Yeah.
Wow.
I used to see him, speak to him, all of that really. I don't know about feel. I can't remember like feel or anything, but apparently I used to like pull hands out of the kitchen cupboards and be like surrounded with all these pans and not know how they got there and things.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I probably really scared my mum.
That's wild. I actually had like a similar experience. I had an imaginary friend, but the more that I kind of dig into like my paranormal past, the more that I've always sort of questioned that. Like my mom always said that I had an imaginary friend named Robin, and that it was the same exact thing. Like no one else could see him. It was an imaginary friend. Like I grew up in the 80s, so I'm sure that's when it was like if something weird happened, they were just like, "Oh, go to the child psychiatrist," which she did. But it was just like, oh, same thing. Here's a place for Robin, set a place for Robin. And then but I don't remember him like at all. So that's wild that you actually like remember.
Yeah. It's really interesting because everyone in my family is slightly spiritual, whether they decide to or not. I recently found out my dad is, which surprised me so much because he doesn't talk about anything like that. But I think it was just before Christmas. We were on the phone talking about something, and he was like, "Oh, how are you getting on with your ghost hunts?" And I was like, "Yeah, fine." And I thought, "Oh, here it comes." Like, "Oh, ghost, blah blah blah." And then he went, "Oh, I used to see your his dad died when he was 18," and he said, "I saw my dad once," and I was like, "Sorry, what?" And he was like, "Yeah, when he passed, he was sat in the armchair across from me," and I was like, "Why are you really just telling me this? Like my whole life, I have thought that you just thought I was nuts."
Right.
And
So
now you're just like,
now,
"Oh yeah, by the way, I see ghosts too."
that's funny. I wonder, did he say like why he was starting to come around to it, or?
Well, I think it's because my mum passed away 3 years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I think that kind of sent him down a path of like some kind of spiritual discovery.
Sure.
I'm not entirely sure. My dad is he's a very strange man, but when my mum passed, she was in the army, and when you're in the army, I don't know if it's the same for your guys and girls, you get a little Bible when you sign up or join up, whatever they call it. And she had that from the army. She hated being in the army. She didn't last very long, and she got out as soon as possible. But for some reason, she kept that Bible. And when she passed, my dad started carrying it around with him.
Oh.
Which was obviously him going to faith because of my mum passing and everything. And he reckons he's seen her. He's seen my mum's dog, or their dog, which passed 2 weeks before my mum passed.
Oh, wow.
So he apparently, he now sees as many spirits as what I used to see. So it's interesting.
That's very interesting. It's like something unlocked there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was. I don't know whether it's that you want to see so you then believe, that kind of thing, or whether he's always had it and just shut it off until that point.
Yeah. I think sometimes people like also probably, I mean, I don't know how old your dad is, but like I know from like my mom's generation, you just didn't talk about that stuff. So it could also be that you're so open with it and have been, and maybe that makes him feel safe to share.
Yeah, that could be it. Yeah, I think it might be a bit of that. My mum was always really open to it, which is funny because me and her used to go to see mediums, when they do like live shows and will read for the audience. We used to go to those, and he always used to take the mick out of us and be like, "Oh, you're going to get mugged because they're like taking your money and it's not real, blah, blah, blah." And we just loved it. Me and my mum, we used to watch Most Haunted on TV, where they go around to all the haunted places.
Yeah.
That was like our thing. We used to sit there and scare ourselves. And we'd both be like, we're open to it, but we don't want it anywhere near us.
Exactly.
Because I got to a stage where I like completely shut it off and I was terrified by it. So I used to watch those just purely scare myself and then be like, yeah, that's why I shut it away and I don't want anything to do with it. But it's so funny that some of my family really wants to see it, some of them don't. But all of us seem to have the capability to be open to it.
There's like an ability there.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, when you went to the medium shows, was there any did anything, I mean, did they kind of like have something for you that like really stood out, or was it like bogus?
The one that we used to go see, she's very well known actually now, and I've always believed in her. I've actually worked with her a few times to like on different courses and things to try and open myself up a bit more. I always liked her and felt drawn to her because she used to be a police officer, and she actually worked with someone who would deal with families when there were like someone had gone missing or someone had been murdered or something on those lines. So she'd be the first port of call, and she's always said that she is a full-on skeptic, even though she's got mediumship abilities. She really has to see something to believe it, and she would always talk about like how she was on these like cases where someone had been murdered, but they hadn't found out that person had been murdered, but she could obviously see the spirit
Oh
who
my
was
gosh.
saying like, I've been murdered. So it was really awkward, and I always found that like quite interesting. So I think she really appealed to me in that sense, that she was a skeptic, but she still had this amazing ability, but still rationalized it in a way, and I found that really interesting.
Well, I think it's also because it sounds like she's got like at least a good level of discernment. Like, I mean, number one, to be a police officer dealing with, you're solving crimes, but then also something that people are not going to be able to understand. You kind of have to be, you have to kind of know what to keep back and then what to sort of, because that's like, I don't know how it is with paranormal investigation, but with a murder case, like definitely you can't like let everything out of the bag, because then it's like, how do you back it up with proof, So that I've always found those cases very interesting, especially if it's a police officer. So what's her name?
Nikki Allen.
Nikki Allen?
Yeah, Nikki Allen.
Okay. I'll have to look her up, because that's really interesting.
Yeah, she's got a very large YouTube following. She's I think she's still on TikTok. She's all about, she's got books and all sorts. So she's very well known now.
Well known. Okay. Cool. That's really crazy. I wonder what I'm gonna have to. I love like true crime and stuff like that. We don't really talk about true crime on the show, but like maybe I can find a case that's like really cool that we can talk about, because that's awesome.
Yeah, so, a paranormal true crime.
I know, like that's okay. I like where that's going. So what was it about? I guess so. You kind of had this childhood of being able to see, all kinds of things. Was there anything outside of the like friend that you had, like growing up? Was there anything in the house that you were living in that you saw, like in addition to that, or was that just kind of your only experience?
When I was a child, he's the only thing I remember in that house. It was a new house, so it had been built the year before I was born, I think. But it's only now as an adult that I've researched where it was built, and we had a woods behind, which was actually called Ghost Hill Woods.
Oh wow!
So yeah, ghosts seems to always have been around me for some reason.
Just around you, yeah.
Yeah. Follow me everywhere I go. And in that woods there was an army base nearby where they used to do trainings, and there's a story that one of them didn't want to go to war, so he decided to be a deserter, and he hid out in the woods, and he actually climbed a tree, and apparently someone was walking along, an arm fell from the tree, and they looked up and they found that he'd died of exposure.
Oh, wow.
So whether that was Peter, I don't know. I haven't been able to find that person's name. There wasn't any record other than that story.
Oh, really?
And there used to be sort of Saxons. There's accounts where people have heard like Saxons using, you can hear their swords clashing against each other and shouting and stuff. I mean, I used to hang out in that woods like pretty much all my life until it was like no longer cool to hang out in the woods. I mean, I still hang out in woods now that I'm 40, but
I know. I was going to say, when is it like, when is it not cool to hang out in the woods?
Yeah. I think there was a period of time when I was like trying to be like 19 to maybe like 25, where I was trying to be like the coolest person ever. That wasn't cool.
Right.
Yeah, but I can see why I was so drawn to that place. So I think that maybe played a bit of part of what was happening in the house at the time.
Wow, I wonder if it was Peter. That's like, what a mystery.
Yeah. I'm hopefully gonna find out one day. It's my
mission.
You'll
find out. Yeah, you'll find out sooner or later. You'll find out.
Yeah.
If it's not here, then it'll be here after. You'll find
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, at some point it will happen.
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy. That actually reminds me. Okay, so we talked about how I love, and I told Tommy this too. Like, I grew up loving like British comedies and especially like British like murder mysteries. So, did you ever watch the show Midsummer Murders?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I've seen every episode 50 times, and there's one episode where it's like exactly that. Like, there's a haunting in the woods. So and it turns out to be like a total fake, but it was like my favorite episode because they just did like spooky woods like so well. But someone had actually like taken it. Either it was like to cover up a murder, or it was like to like murder somebody or like make somebody crazy. They put like tape recordings of like spooky noises in the trees.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I remember that one. Yeah.
oh dude,
Do you know that I do believe, I might be wrong on this, I'm pretty sure where they filmed is actually in Norfolk, where I'm from.
really?
I don't know the village. It's either that or another program, but I'm pretty sure that's.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Every
We've
time
got
I
some
think of
creepy places.
Oh, you guys absolutely totally do. Like, every time I think of England, I just think of like little like quaint villages where everyone gets murdered. Like,
Yeah.
Midsummer Murder.
Maybe not murdered so much these days, but
Just ghosts
definitely got some
everywhere.
weird little villages.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to hear about how you got into the paranormal investigation. Did the stories start first, or did you get into investigation first?
Um, I've always kind of written weird stories and been into weird stories. I mean, I grew up in the generation probably a bit like yourself, where we had Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark and Going Round the Twist and all these other weird and wonderful, the Crypt Keeper telling us bedtime stories, and then they wonder we're all a bit.
I know, right? Did you also love Victorian ghost stories? Because I totally did.
Yeah. Or just anything that's been ghost related, Ghostbusters. I mean, my favourite birthday party was a joint birthday party with my friend who unfortunately has passed away now, but we had a joint birthday party and it was a Ghostbusters themed at a Wimpy, and it was the best party ever. And I still say to his mum, I was like, because we would have both turned 40 this year, and I said to her, like, that birthday is the birthday that I will always remember.
Oh, what year was
it? Was my favourite. I think it was like 1988.
So how old were you? Like,
I was born in 1985, so we were quite young, but I just remember it so clearly. I've actually still got a picture of him. Like, I have a picture of me and him when we were younger on my desk.
What's his name?
His name's Gary.
Oh, Gary.
So we were born exactly the same age, exactly the same day as each other. So he was the first boy born that year. I was the first girl born that year in Norfolk.
Oh my gosh.
So we've always had this weird, like, our families have this weird, like, link to each other. It's really strange.
You're like destined to be friends.
Yeah.
Oh, Gary.
So that is quite cool, but that just always is in my brain, that birthday party. It was so cool.
It's like it's just a treasured memory. That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I'd reenact it now if I could.
Yeah.
I'd just go get us.
Wait, you should. Why not? Yeah. Wait, you said it's a Wimpy's? Is that what you said? Wimpy's?
Yeah, so it's a bit like a McDonald's or a Burger King, but like a UK version. I don't know if they still exist, but yeah, it's a bit like one of those.
Okay, no, I hear by decree that you need to have your birthday party at any burger place, and definitely like Ghostbuster themed. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, I'll invite everyone. Everyone can come, and we'll have like a massive Ghostbusters thing.
Exactly. You could live stream it too, and then all of your like weird internet friends could come too.
That would be the best.
That's awesome.
I might actually do that.
Yes. Okay, good. Yeah, see, this is what we love doing here. It's just creating space for all the weirdness.
I know, it's the best. It's the best. It has to be done.
Yes. So let's jump into like, how the investigations are. I'm sorry, we went down a rabbit trail, but
we did.
Yeah.
So I've only actually started, I was saying this to Tommy earlier actually. I think I was June last year was when I went on my first paranormal investigation. So I called myself a baby investigator. It was really strange because I moved here and I'm from Norfolk, but I now live in Northumberland. So Norfolk's like down here somewhere on the map. Northumberland's up here somewhere on the map. So we've gone about 6 hours up the road.
Okay.
And there's a fair little trek. And I don't know anyone. So I was like, so I need to meet people. What sort of interests do I have? And I was like, I'm a little bit weird and I like creepy stuff. So when am I going to find these people? And then I was on Facebook and I just saw that the local antique place was having a open paranormal investigation.
Perfect.
And I was like, I'll go along and see what it's like. Because at that point, I was still really terrified of the paranormal and didn't want anything. Like, I wanted to be in it. I didn't want to be in it. And I was like, I'll just see what it's like. If I'm terrified, I will never, ever be involved in it ever again and stay away from it. And I went, and before I knew it, I was down in a basement. I was like getting really into it. And then they asked me to be on the team, and they've been stuck with me ever since.
Nice.
So it's meant to be.
Yeah. So what would be, I guess, probably like, how did you do like training, or was it more just kind of, just following along with the team and getting to know them, and I guess getting to know the area too?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I've always been interested in places. When I was younger, we have, in the UK, we've got a lot of like old castles, buildings, homes, etc. And there's a thing, it's called the National Trust, and you can like be a member and you get like a discount to go to all these places. My parents used to drag me and my sister to these places all the time when we were younger, and I used to love it. Probably as an open spiritually child, I was running around like probably playing with, Henry VIII's ghost or something. I can dream, but I loved going to like old places, and I've always been drawn to old places. So I think that part of it really appeals to me when we go to paranormal places. It's usually a bit old, and you can get the history around it, find out who lived there, what they did, all of that. I love that side of it, but I also love the communication side of it, like learning the technology. I don't get too involved in the technology just because I'm probably a bit old school. Usually what I do is draw things, do writing. I have started using dowsing rods, but they're a bit of an old tool as well. So I think I take that from my great grandmother, like the really old sort of mediumship skills. But yeah, I have like these premonitions, I suppose. Like before we go to an investigation, I'll get sort of images come to me and be able to draw them. And then when we get there, sure enough, you'll see what I've drawn.
Wow.
And I'll be like, I've never stepped foot in this building. I've never looked at this building. I don't know anything about it. And I've clearly just drawn what's right in front of us.
Oh, wow.
How it happens. It just does.
It's like a vision comes to you.
Yeah. It's really strange.
Do you see it more? So I guess it's more like pictures and not words.
Yeah, it's really hard to describe. I kind of feel it more than I see it. So it's like I can feel that there'll be stairs in front of me. They'll turn this way. They'll go up that way. That kind of thing. I don't like see it so much anymore.
It's like a knowing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Have you ever gotten into a situation, I guess, on an investigation, or even, if you've kind of had, like, been drawn to a place, have you ever gotten into something that would be feeling like, more like spiritual trouble, or that you kind of, maybe were drawn there, like for wrong reasons, like it was just a bad energy, or?
Yeah, there's one place that we went to that me and the medium in the group actually down tools. Because we were like, we're not having anything to do with this. And none of us had ever been there before. We didn't really know what we were kind of getting into. But we had a younger investigator with us. It was his first time, and he was getting really drawn into this one room, and he was standing there like staring at the door, and I was like, "What are you looking at?" And he said, "There's a man. He keeps telling me to come here," and I'm like, "No." I was like, "That
Yeah.
is not happening." So me and the medium took him out of the building, and the minute we took him out of the building, he started to walk round to the window of the room. And it was like he was in a trance. He was like, "I need to go there." And I was like, "No, get away from it." So we got him away from it, and we used sage as the medium, like cleared him and stuff. And the minute we did that, he burst into tears. And he was so drawn to it, we had to get him. We knew that he was wearing a cross that his godmother had given him. And we got him to like hold the cross and think of his godmother, because it was at that point, we were like, we need to pull like every bit of good.
Pull him out of it.
Yeah, to like get him away from it. He burst into tears, and we sent him home. We were like, somebody needs to take him home. He's not staying here. And we said that we'd never go back, but there's so many unanswered questions about that place that we have actually booked to go.
Have you gone back?
Not yet. We're going back this year at some point. So I can't remember when, but we've booked in to go back. They were like, "Should we go?" And I was like, "Oh, okay."
What was the name of the place?
It's called Bensham Grove it's in Sunderland, in the northeast of England. It's so like, it's a community centre now, but it used to be a house, and it's such a beautiful old house. It has really old like William Morris wallpaper. It's got oak stairs. It's gorgeous. I actually sat there and said, if this place wasn't so messed up, I would actually live here.
Do you know about the history? I mean, is there like a crazy history, or is it just
we've looked into it a little bit. There wasn't the history of the house. When you read back, they were really really religious. They did a lot of community outreach. They helped like the women's suffragettes. Loads of really good things, which didn't make sense to us, because a certain area of that house was so bad. And I said to the medium, I'm convinced there's something in the ground. And I watched another person do an investigation there, and they had actually found out that someone from a institute had gone to this house as like a halfway before they went somewhere else, like a halfway house type thing. And they didn't want to go to this other place, so they murdered someone close by.
Oh, wow.
So that they then obviously went to prison. And I was adamant that night. I said, there's something to do with the ground. It's not the house, it's the ground. So when I saw that, I was like, I think we have to go back because of that. I think there's more to uncover about the story.
That makes a lot of sense, because sometimes, yeah, you find that like it's almost like the ground like cries out with the blood of the history, that's actually a biblical verse, but I can't remember which one. But it's fascinating, because you can have sort of all this activity in a house without the house like even being like a newer house. But you're right, there's something in the ground. There's either bloodshed or some sort of iniquity that's drawing that sort of energy.
Yeah. It leaves memories.
It does. Yeah. That's just so crazy. I want to hear what happens. Like, that's just,
I'll keep you posted.
Yeah. I want to kind of hear. I used to be really not involved, but like really interested in going out and investigating. And I steer clear of it now. Just because I think sometimes what happens is it like you either get like sucked into it and like you have all of these like spiritual gifts, and then they just get kind of, like gone to the dark side sort of. So I had that experience, and since coming out of that, I'm really apprehensive about poking my nose where I know I don't belong.
Yeah.
I get into trouble.
I think I had kind of the opposite, that I started to get really dark things when I wasn't into it. So now that I'm into it, I understand it a bit more, and I'm the one in our group who's like sages everyone before they go home. I wave my selenite stick around people before they go home. If I notice someone's getting taken over, I'm snapping my fingers to like get them out of it or telling them to leave the room.
Right. Yeah.
I've got, my stages, my dragon's blood, I wear, I've got a ring that I always wear, which is like black tourmaline, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Crystal, can't remember which one. I've got a necklace that I wear. I wear my St. Michael's necklace. I have a St. Benedict's, which has got dragon's blood glass and all the rest of it around me.
So you
I
know
like-
that there's a level of protection that you need to have before you go into these places. Yeah.
Even I know that sometimes that still won't be enough.
Yeah.
So you have to really, I think most of it is like paying attention to the signs.
Mm-hmm.
You can, if you ignore the equipment and you pay attention to your gut, you'll know. The same as when you walk into a room or you go on a date and there's something a bit strange with that person and you don't know what it is. We've all got that fight or flight response, and our stomach usually tells us what we're thinking before our head does.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
we need to pay attention to that and be like, let's go. Enough is enough.
Exactly. Yeah. No,
And then just
it's
get away
smart.
from it, be as comfortable.
Yeah. You don't ever want to bring anything back, because sometimes it can just be so dangerous because you might not get anything, but it could be somebody in your household or in your bloodline and all of that. And especially like if you have that sort of ability already, you're well aware of that.
Yeah, that's what I always say. I got we do a secret Santa, and I got the most horrible haunted doll imaginable as a secret Santa. It came with a lovely note, and I was like, I'm not taking that home. No way am I having that anywhere near my house.
No.
It sounds. I said, thank
sounds
you
like
for
a
the
setup.
presents, but somebody else can have that. I
No,
was like,
thank
that's
you.
not coming home with me. I do have a haunted doll, but she is very nice. So
I didn't even realize until I started looking at, I guess, different people's Instagrams. I had no idea that that's a whole thing is you can buy possessed things, and I would not recommend for sure. But I couldn't believe that I mean, I guess for me, when I was in high school and definitely college, I probably totally would have done that. But now I'm just nope. I don't want to backtrack and get myself into having. I'll definitely have an attachment.
It took a very long time to find the right one for me, and I wasn't going to ever. And then I was looking at some things, and it came up recommended, and I just think she's so beautiful because she looks very Victorian.
Yeah,
and I mean, I can show you. I'll show you her because she's lovely.
She may be creepy. I'm scared. Oh, you know what? She looks like one. Is she porcelain?
Yeah.
She's
lovely.
That is every doll that I had in the 90s. It was a whole. Do you remember that trend? I don't know if you guys had it over there, but for some reason, someone in the 90s decided these girls need porcelain, creepy looking dolls. And
yeah. I think that's probably what she reminded me of when I was like, oh, I'm feeling nostalgic.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what happened to any of mine. I mean, it was definitely, and they had stands and you would stand them up. And I remember just I don't know, going over to my little friends' houses. And if you were really, really rich, you would have all these porcelain dolls and stuff. And so I have no idea. No idea where they went. I do have, it's funny. I have a doll. So do you remember Shirley Temple? The little actress. So I grew up with this life-size, my grandmother had a life-size Shirley Temple doll, and I absolutely loved it because it was my height for a while. So I would sneak in her room and just stare at the, this doll. And so I actually inherited it, and it's totally not haunted. It's just kind of, it looks really creepy. So it's funny because my friend Crystal, who I do the show with sometimes, her daughters are just oh my gosh, the creepy doll. So now I put it in I had it around the house and every kid was like freaked out at it. So now it's like in a closet and it just like stays there. And that's where like and that's where all of my like childhood dolls and things are. So they call it the creepy doll closet. And I'm just like, it's totally not haunted or anything. It's just my Shirley Temple.
Like come out and be on show.
Exactly.
Be on display.
I know. It's kind of sad. Like, I'm like, I had so much joy like growing up with her. Like,
yeah.
So.
It's funny. You know the TV show Alf with I was absolutely obsessed with that when I was younger. And my parents spent so much money and time to track down, because you could only get them from America. So back in the 80s or early 90s, to have anything shipped over from America to the UK was expensive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it still is. And they paid for like an Alf doll to come over, and they gave it to me for Christmas. And I got so freaked out because I thought he came from the TV and into the living room.
Oh my God.
I was so scared. I was crying all the time, and I wouldn't have it anywhere near me. And they spent so much money to get that for me.
That is perfect.
The TV.
That I mean, I could see that. I loved Alf. He was because he was an alien, right? Yeah, he was an alien.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Yeah. I literally thought aliens come from the TV into my living room, and I wasn't having any of it.
Exactly. Oh, poor Alf. Do you still have it?
I don't. I wish I did, because it would probably be worth a lot of money now. But
I know it's.
I would love it in my bookshelf.
I know it's the stuff that you don't think of, right? Like you would never think to keep that. Yeah, I know. Missed opportunities.
I know.
So I really wanted to get into, so you have, not only do you have like the awesome Instagram and the YouTube channel of Shell's Spooky Stories, but you also have put them in a book. Do you want to talk about that and tell us about your book?
Yeah. So the book is, it's been a project that's been on my mind for a very long time, and I've put it off, and I don't think I had enough confidence in myself to actually try and attempt to put a book together. But as I turned 40 this year, I was like, right, I'm going to set myself a goal that I'm going to publish it on my 40th birthday. I have to do it. I've told everyone I'm going to do it, so I need to do it. Otherwise, I'm going to look stupid. So I spent, it was about 7 months I spent writing it. And I'm not the best at English, so it was very hard for me. I have learning difficulties. It was really hard. So I kind of have done my best with the tool I have.
Well, you communicate the stories so naturally and so well. So I can't wait to read the book. I told you, like, it's definitely like on my list. I had difficulties actually ordering it, but you're going to give me the correct link, because I think I was
give you the correct thing.
I think I was not using Amazon correct. It's just user error. I don't know how to shop.
Oh, we'll get you there. We'll get you there.
Yeah.
The book is basically, it's got Peter in it. It's got, the main character is kind of based on me and how I've dealt with spirits throughout my life. It's got my grandmother in it. She's a character. My mum's in it as a character. There's a medium in there who's like sort of all the mediums that I've worked with grouped together as one person. It's like a sort of homage to them. And it's, here's my family. My granddad's Scottish. His whole side of the family is Scottish. And I loved my granddad so much. I've actually got a picture of him up there, and he's kilt up there.
Oh, cool.
So he's a massive part of my, he was, me and him were like, had such a close bond, and was so like, when he died, I just like fell apart. And this is like kind of like a love letter to my Celtic heritage, like to my family. And it just tells kind of a very, very extended, elaborate version of my life. Because there's a dark entity in there that is kind of an imagination dark entity. Luckily, touch wood, I haven't come across anything quite that bad. But as the book gets on, it comes away from kind of my life and it is more into the fantasy world. But it's the personalities behind the character still remain as my family, my friends, and it's kind of shows how I've developed in being someone who like doesn't really understand what my gifts are and what I'm meant to do with them. To
Yeah.
someone who now stand there on a paranormal investigation and be like, this isn't happening. I'm stepping away from that. You move away from this. You know, that's not a child we're talking to, and being quite confident in what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So it kind of brings all of that in, and it's set in like the 1970s in Scotland, in the Highlands.
It's
It's
so
got the
cool.
crow in it. The crows are very present because I had to bring in the crows
Yeah.
from my birth origin story. And it's got a few psychological twists in it as well, which I've had a friend who's a medium read it, and she said that she understood it because I was trying to explain it to her.
Yeah.
I think if you weren't into the spiritual world, you might find certain bits repetitive, but they are done on purpose because, as I found when I started my spiritual path, things will happen to you over and over and over and over again, and people say the same things to you. Like you'll go into a supermarket, someone will say a sentence. You'll go down to the bank, someone will say the same thing to you. Your friend will phone you and say exactly the same thing, and it's spirit's way of being like, hello, wake up. We're
like
telling you this. Pay attention.
Confirmation. Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of brought that into it as well. There's kind of a more like psychological twist on it. It's like you need to pay attention to the signs that you're getting
Yeah.
and the things that people are saying to you because they're often warnings or messages.
I love that. That's really it's like confirmation, you know, when something happens, you know, over and over and over again. There's actually there's a book that I just started reading through the suggestion of one of my new podcast friends. I can't remember who it was, but it's called Seer's Sea, and it's all about just like the gifting of being able to see spirits and how it's and now it does take a biblical framework because it's written by a pastor whose daughter was able to see, like, from a young age she saw ghosts and spirits. And when I got to that part of it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is creeping me out because it reminded me of like that whole experience of having the imaginary friend and then my own personal like stories and just, you know, all the stuff that I've dealt with. So I was like, wow, wait a second, that's a different sort of framework. So I'm in the middle of that. So I'll definitely recommend that to you because it's like, oh yeah, well, wait a second, amazing. This is something that, like, you know, I think sometimes we get into the supernatural and I think people want to either be in like one camp or the other. And it's just like, well, people are still experiencing something. So we're meant to figure it out because it's part of your journey, you know. It's just it's crazy how the more stories that I hear, they all sort of start in childhood. And this guy actually, like, he has a whole, like, I think it's just like not like so much therapy, but like he helps people better understand that gifting because it's like it's a gift, you know, it's like a supernatural gift. So it's really, I just can't wait to read this book and anything with the Scottish Highlands. Oh, just I love it.
I love it.
I know.
I'm so close to this Scotland now.
I was just gonna say you're so like, you're so lucky because you're just, I don't know.
Yeah, we're doing a few ghost hunts actually this year in Scotland, I think. I think I've got a couple in Scotland, which I cannot wait for.
Yeah. So what is probably, I guess I wanna know more about like your favorite, like what would be like your favorite like story that you've told or that you've experienced? Do you have a favorite one or one that really kind of is close to your heart? I know, you know, with your friend, but
well, I think one that's always stuck in my mind is I went to a boarding school which was used to be an old World War II hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So we had the proper like old Little huts and a water tower, and I mean one of my stories, the Midnight Nurse.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what it's called. Yeah, Midnight Nurse. That's actually based on this story. And we had so many stories at that place, but the one that always stuck in my mind was of a nurse who fell in love with someone and he never came back. And she climbed to the top of the water tower and fell in and drowned.
Oh.
And then, but you'd see her apparently on certain nights go up the water tower and disappear.
Yeah.
So that was one that had always stuck in my mind. So it only felt right that I actually make a story about it.
It's almost like
So that's
one of the white
definitely,
lady.
yeah. And I think I love like the images that Tom created around them, with her being like a proper creepy ghost in her nurse's uniform. And
Yeah, he comes up with some really, really really creepy stuff. Like,
I know, he's always like, is this too creepy? I'm like, no, nothing's ever too creepy. I think you could go creepier.
I think it's, there's just kind of this, pool, I think. People probably have a lot more connection to the spiritual and the supernatural than they realize. And I think that that's what these stories really kind of pull out of us, is that, there is that bit of darkness and in the world. And there's a lot of questions around, what happens to these entities or these spirits, because people are seeing them and it's such a part of our human history. And I think that you really capture that beautifully in your stories. Yeah.
I try.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. I really
So-
enjoy doing them.
And that's so important, being a storyteller, and really caring about the stories that you're telling. And that definitely comes through to your work. So I'm definitely grateful. And I hope that my listeners will go follow you, because I just love all of your stuff. But I have a
My
story.
husband finds it quite funny.
I love it. I don't know. There's just something also, I think, because of your, just because you're British, and it's just like a hauntingly, I just get whisked away in the storytelling. Yes. But I told you that I found a story for you.
Yeah.
Yes. So now my audience will remember Where the Footprints End, which is a book that I pull from all the time by Timothy Renner, and he's in Pennsylvania. So I was saying to you, what he did is he takes all of these paranormal and Bigfoot accounts and pulls them together. And so this he found, so this is from a book called Wild Man, the Monstrous and Mysterious Saga of the British Bigfoot. And the author is Nick Redfern. And he says that it uncovered perhaps the most striking example of a hairy hominid observed in conjunction with poltergeist activity. So he has a whole chapter of called Hairy Poltergeists. And so this is from the 50s, and it says paranormal author Stan Gooch saw a prehistoric man materialize during a seance in Coventry, England, before vanishing in thin air. And this is what the account says. It says, this was a crouching ape-like shape which became clear as the moments passed. I guess it approximated to most people's idea of what an ancient caveman would look like. Yet one could not make out too much detail. The eyes were hidden, for example. It stood in half shadow watching us, breathing heavily as if nervous. I must say, though, that I sensed rather than heard the breathing. I could not decide whether our visitor was wearing the skin of some animal or whether it had a rough coat of hair of its own. And so then it goes on to another medium that also saw a materialized mysterious ape in the 20th century. So it's kind of neat that he pulls all this stuff together of people that have actually during a seance something materialized that they could see. So I thought that was
that's
kind of
really
neat.
cool.
I know.
I wonder, I can't remember. Oh, I'm so bad at remembering time periods in British history.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that there's a place in Norfolk that used to be, it was an Iron Age place, and they used to really look very caveman-like with big fur hides on.
Oh, that's
And I wonder if
interesting.
that's kind of what they were saying. I also immediately started thinking of the TV series Ghosts with the caveman.
Yeah. They just take like one from each time period. I love
Yeah,
that.
I love that program so much. That's like what came into my mind. Maybe it was like a Bigfoot. Maybe it was a caveman.
Yeah.
Who knows?
It's really interesting because when he pulls these things together, and sometimes I'll read them beforehand and sometimes I won't, and that because I just kind of like being surprised by it. But sometimes it's just like, okay, this is kind of a stretch. But it's like, oh well, wait a second, this guy couldn't really tell. Like it looked sort of like an ape, or was it like a caveman? Who knows?
Yeah.
I
You never know
definitely
how people see spirits either. Like
Mhm.
I used to see them with my actual eyes, but now I more feel what the person looks like,
Mhm.
which can sometimes be really hard. Like,
Yeah.
could it be a man? Could it be a female? Sometimes you think it's a man, but it's a woman with a very masculine energy because you're feeling the energy.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So I
So
wanted
who
to ask
knows?
you that. What in your experience, what do you think it is that, when people see spirits or when they sense that, what do you think it is? Do you think that it's always, someone's deceased spirit kind of back here, or what do you think?
Um, that's a really good question. What do I think? Um, I think it's more an energy, like um, like an energetic photograph or an energetic movie.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know whether we're picking up on like people's memories. See, I tend to pick up more on memories and people's energies.
That are
Like a
connected to an area more so.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I know for me, that's probably what I think it is. And I think there's lots of different things as well, where it could be spirits that are living in their memories.
Mm.
Like they just go in, they love their house so much. I mean, I know this house, we've worked really hard to make it our
Yeah.
own. And I'd like to think that I would probably stay here if I passed away, and I'd be like, I love this house. I've put a lot of money, energy, and love and sweat and tears into this house.
Yeah.
So I think if someone came in and started bashing a wall down, I'd be really annoyed. So I'd probably come back in to cause some trouble. It would be a bit of poltergeist activity.
Yeah.
So I totally understand that when you walk into a house and start knocking walls down and you start to get activity because somebody's popped in to check on their beloved home that they had so many wonderful memories in, and you're knocking it to bits and they're going to be a bit cheesed off.
Yeah.
I would be.
Yeah.
But I also understand the same as like, I think when you go into someone's house, even as a living person, you can tell when somebody's just had an argument.
Mm.
You can tell when someone's lying.
Yeah.
You have that feeling.
There's a
And I
change
think
in
it's the
the
same.
atmosphere. The atmosphere of the home is very.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
I'm
it's the same
sensitive
when
to
you walk
that
into a
too.
building.
Oh,
You
sure.
can tell that it's nasty. You can tell that it's nice. You can tell when the communication you're getting is not quite what it's, it's saying it's meant to be.
Hmm. What
Like
do you do in that
sometimes
case? If what do you do if you experience something that you can tell is just really, it's off. It's not good.
communication straight away and get away from the area. Don't entertain it.
Yeah.
I think some people push it and that's where it goes wrong,
Hmm.
or some people don't understand it. That's why I don't particularly deal with spirit boards, Ouija boards, because I think it is like a little bit like picking up the phone and not knowing who's on the other end,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
um,
agree.
or opening your door and just saying, anyone come in.
Yeah.
It's not a good idea. You don't know who's going to step through. Um, But I also understand some people's opinions of it, where they think that if you're a medium, you could open up and get anyone come through. Which is true. You could anyone come through, but you have to learn to have the same in life, your boundaries, and protect yourself as much as you can. You could walk down the road in an armored vehicle and still find yourself in trouble.
That
It's
is
the same kind of thing.
especially, I think that is such a good point, because we're in this sort of space of, there's a lot of other variables, and we're in this, we live in I believe, a supernatural world that's around us. And, you're right. You might not know what you're kind of entertaining. So you have to be really, really careful. That's just always my first line of defense is, when I tell people is just be careful. If you're going in and realizing you're kind of poking the bear, and you're looking into things, just be ready for, anything to really happen, because we don't know, we really just don't know sometimes. But
Yeah.
I wonder, I guess my next question really kind of goes to, in your case, with what you're investigating, and if you look at it sort of like case by case, have you ever gotten to a point where there's been a case where you're like, wait a second, this is out of our realm? Have you ever had to like call in like a spiritual advisor or like a priest or something, where it's just like, wow, this stuff has been crazy here? Or are you guys just kind of getting more into the bottom of history?
I don't think I haven't definitely experienced anything like that. I don't know if the others have experienced anything like that.
Because I know that like in the movies and things like that, it always ends up there. There was a paranormal investigator, and then, something happened, and,
Yeah, they ended up doing something that they shouldn't be doing. And
right.
Yeah, I mean, I watch a lot of those on YouTube, and sometimes when they're like, I can't believe that happened, I'm like, yeah, I can believe it happened, because you sat there and you were calling and it told you 4 times that to get out, and you still stayed. So there are certain signs that you should pay attention to.
Yeah.
But I always say, when I go into an investigation, that we're here with respect. We're here to learn more about you and your story. Understand, and if you need help, we'll help you. But as we're giving you respect, we ask that you give us respect. Like, don't harm us. Don't be disrespectful. I mean, even then, sometimes they still call you some nasty names. And you have to go like, well, that's not very nice.
Right.
I'm treating you with respect. But I kind of treat it the same as if I was speaking to a person, a physically alive person. If they start calling me names, I'm going to be like, excuse me.
Yeah.
Could you stop? That's rude. I'm not going to talk to you anymore.
And then, yeah, I was going to say, like, shut down the communication. That's when you just stop talking. Yeah. That's fair.
Yeah. Some people will be like, no, you're a...
Right. Yeah.
That's where you're then getting in trouble.
Because you start antagonizing him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Picking a fight.
Like, you pick your fights. You wouldn't go into, a restaurant or something and just start. Well, some people would, but you wouldn't just start on someone. It escalates. It always does. So it's the same when you're dealing with, spirits. They used to be people. In their minds, they could still think they are people, because you don't know whether they realize they're dead or not.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. It's so interesting. And actually, in that book, I haven't gotten far in this book. I should probably like not even talk about it. But once I got to the certain part, I was so excited, because it resonated with my own story. And he has a whole chapter on ghosts and like kind of getting down to the bottom of it. So I'm always interested in what people, what their experience is, and then what they think that they are, because, sometimes it's not clear.
Yeah.
So I always like to ask.
Yeah, it is an interesting topic. I mean, there's so many different avenues to it.
Yeah. And it's funny, because even like for me personally, when I first started reading the Bible, there's a part where like Jesus is like, I'm not a ghost. And I was like, well, wait, hold on. Well, then what's a ghost? Like,
Yeah.
someone define it. Like,
An apparition
Yeah.
isn't a ghost.
what is it? Yeah.
What is a ghost?
I know. I feel like sometimes I'm just like, I still don't know. But it's always good to ask questions, I think, and be questioning always.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only way we learn. It's the only
Yeah.
way we evolve.
Do you have any
100%.
other fun stories that you wanna share? I know you've got a lot, but
Actually, I have loads, yeah. So really, I'm trying to think of a really good one.
I like putting people on the spot.
I know. Problem is, I've got so many that I'm trying to think of like a really good
A
one.
really good one.
And I'm also trying to think of one that I haven't like maybe said.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think. I can talk about why I don't do Ouija boards and why my mum warned me of Ouija boards.
Oh yeah, let's do that because that's actually a topic of conversation around here because I do not. I opened up way too many portals in my youth, so and I paid for it.
No,
Yeah,
I don't do those either.
yeah. What was your experience?
So my mum, this was when she was in the army and she was doing her army training,
Mm-hmm.
and they were all in different groups. And I'm still a bit iffy as to whether this was part of the training or just something they were just being stupid and doing things they shouldn't be doing. But they all seemed to go in this room and take turns coming in and out of this room doing a spirit board. And every time they did it, it kept saying the same things. The same girl in the group's name, the same grandmother of the girl in the group, and the same message.
Oh,
I
wow.
can't remember what the message was, but it wasn't a very good message. I remember that much. And it was very much a warning, and this girl was getting really freaked out and really like upset by the whole thing. And my mum said that on the next time that they went in, don't know why they kept doing it, but they were obviously thinking, well, you know, let's see whether it says something different. They walked it in, did the same, it said the same thing, said the same girl's name, and the glass literally lifted off and smashed into the wall. And
Oh
that's
my
when they all
goodness.
decided like to stop and not do it. And my mum said that like really freaked her out, and she decided not really to have anything to do with spirits ever since. And I have had that in my brain for so long that when I was in my second year at boarding school, we moved into the sort of main boarding house, and we were all pulling out drawers to like put our clothes in and stuff when we moved in. And somebody found for some reason they dropped something at the thing, and you could only get it out by pulling the whole drawer out.
Okay.
And for some reason they turned it upside down, and there was a Ouija board like drawn on the bottom of the drawer.
Oh, on the
they were all
piece of
like,
furniture?
yeah, and someone had literally
Oh.
made one on the bottom of the furniture.
Oh my gosh.
Kids get bored when they're at boarding school.
Sure.
Who knew?
Yeah.
So they were like, oh, let's do it tonight. And I was like, no, I'm not doing it tonight. I'm not doing it ever. You can do it. And so they all decided to do it that evening. And I went and stayed in somebody else's dormitory and above. And you could just hear them screaming and like, all sorts of things. It was horrible. I mean, I knew that place was haunted anyway. So
Yeah.
I wasn't going to analyze anything that was already there. You know, there's a lot of war trauma in that place. It wasn't a great place to be doing anything like that. So I've stayed clear ever since my mum told me that story, because I just don't want to entertain.
That's fascinating because if you think about like, look at how like when we were we just kind of touched on like, you know, the bloodline of like, you know, you have this sort of gifting in your family and then it like tempted your mother and then there's like this crazy experience and then she's telling you and then it's there. Like you wouldn't even think like that's not, I don't believe in coincidences. Like that was put there to get you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I think that was like that's just wild that.
I always
my
say
God.
to like the team, because some of them are quite happy to do them. And I said, you can do it. You can do what you want. I am just not going to entertain it myself.
Yeah. No,
I'll be
that's
there
very smart.
for like to help you if anything goes wrong, if I can.
Yeah.
but I'm just not going to entertain it myself.
Yeah. And then it becomes like outside of your pay grade. Like, it's not I can't handle this.
Yeah,
Wow.
I'll just spend the Vatican.
Yeah. That takes a lot, actually. To get like a proper Vatican sanctioned exorcist. There's a priest that I follow who I really enjoy his he's like an exorcist, and it's Father Rehill, and he has like he's got crazy stories, but I don't think that he's actually like legit from, I think he's actually kind of more on like the deliverance side, but it's tricky with like priests and stuff like that. But that
she has them on TikTok, which is really interesting.
Like priests or like I know they're like deliverance is different, like, but they are not.
And I know there's one that's called like Bishop of Father John or something.
I've never heard of him.
Something like that. Okay, I'll have to find him and send him to you.
Yeah.
He like watches things and then like will react to them and explain what he's seeing.
Yeah.
And he's like, we'll tell you whether it's genuine or not. And then he'll explain like what they would do in that case if that did actually happen. It's really interesting. I just find it interesting how they're like, let's go on social media and talk about these things that we've never ever spoken about publicly.
I know. We're not supposed to talk about this, but let's go on TikTok. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I know. There's another so I don't know if you've ever heard of the Exorcist Files. So that's actually a podcast, and it's Father Carlos Martin, and he's great. Like, he's got crazy stories of just, that's when I always kind of find it like fascinating, where it's just like, I think the Catholic Church is at least really good at being like, you know what? Yep, this stuff's real, and we have to handle it because it is definitely beyond, the natural, really. So I just find it so fascinating. And so that's definitely a resource for people listening. If you want to get further into like that sort of stuff, that the Exorcist Files is really well done and well documented. For me, that's kind of what it is just the documentation, the research, you're telling these stories, but it's not just like, that's what I love about what you're doing is it's not just, kind of campfire stories. It's actual things that you've experienced and then others have experienced too.
Yeah. I like to make them so that you don't know whether they are actual like truth or, I mean, sometimes I have a story and I'm like, oh, if I tell that story how it is, it's really boring. So I need to like indulge a little bit to make it a little bit extra. But yeah, most of the time they are just taken from either my imagination, my dreams, or I mean, there's one which was a dream. It was where she walks into a place and there's a spirit in the corner. She can see it. And as she like moves around, she sees like a woman at the top of the cliff in a wedding dress who like repeats jumping off the cliff. And that was actually a dream of mine, that she could like see it. I could just see it walking. And it was like I was walking through this place and I'd been called there to like get rid of the spirits. And I could see the spirits and I was trying to clear the place. But I just kept seeing this woman like just jumping off a cliff in her wedding dress like, over and over and over again.
Oh,
yeah, weird dreams.
Yeah. Well, that's just sad to think about. I mean, that's a classic. Like I said, you've had another one that you were telling me earlier. It's like classic, lady in white stories.
Yeah. We had a lot of those at boarding school. We had like loads of stories where it'd be like, on the 11th night of the 11th hour, you're in the 11th bed, then you're gonna wake up dead. I don't know how you wake up dead, but
I feel
like things that you say as a child.
I was just gonna say, I feel like anytime you get like a bunch of adolescent girls together, there's some sort of, I don't know, it's in us where we just want to conjure something. Like, I don't know why we don't learn, but for some reason,
it's probably, I don't know about you, but when we were at high school, we start to learn about like William Shakespeare and Macbeth, and you then go down all those avenues. And we had, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and we had the Blair Witch Project came out, and what was the other thing? Oh my god, it's like one of my favorite films, and I've totally forgotten what it was. Some 4 witches.
Oh, The Craft.
Yeah, the craft, that's the one. Yeah, you learning about that, and I don't know why I forgot the name of it. Um, but
Which
yeah, there's
they actually used like real like witchcraft in that movie, in the making of that movie. Like they had somebody on staff that was like doing it. So that's where like all my trouble began, because like
uh
my story is like I was into that stuff, and I literally thought that I was like Fairuza Bullock in high school, like ran around all goth and wanted to put spells on everybody, and then I just got myself in a boatload of spiritual, just like I had an entity follow me for a long time, and it was bad. So I learned my
good.
lesson.
Yeah.
And
So
I
those things. Yeah.
had a literal come to Jesus moment, thank God. So like but it's so funny because I think that's just it. Like I said, like in the beginning, there's something in us that we just were drawn to it, and I love what you're doing, because you are, whether it's like through history or, even just through your dreams or whatever, you're attempting to tell these stories, and that's important, getting the stories told is important. And I would imagine, giving a sense of peace to some people, because it's, as you tell stories, it helps your healing.
I think so, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of power behind words anyway, isn't there?
Yeah.
But I think the part I love most about the whole paranormal investigation side is understanding the stories. Because history isn't always what we think it is.
Mm-hmm.
History is somebody's version of that event, not the other person's version of the event. We all see things very differently. And I think sometimes it's nice to give those spirits a name, a name, tell their story that hasn't been able to be told, to give them peace. And I think it's always nice when you find one that's stuck and needs to get to their loved ones, because that happens a lot. People don't realise they've passed, or they've missed their window to go through to the other side, and they're stuck away from their loved one and they don't know what's happening or how to get there. And when you can cross them over to be with that person or their family, that's such a nice feeling to know that you've done that for that spirit that's been there, 50, 100 years. I can't imagine being stuck like someone without my husband for like 200 years.
It makes me so sad when I think about that,
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awful.
I know.
It's a good thing. There is good in doing ghost hunting sometimes.
Well, I'm so appreciative of your time and you coming on here and sharing your stories. And can you tell everybody where they can find you?
Yeah, I am on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, all of the places really, and it's just Shell Spooky Stories.
And they're so good. You guys have to go listen. Definitely, for sure.
Please do.
Please do. Shell, thank you so much for coming on. I really just loved hearing all of this. I really did. It's been such a pleasure meeting you. And I hope that we have more connection, because I definitely have stuff to share with you, and I'm sure you have your stuff to share
definitely.
with me. Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe
totally.
we'll have to bring you back on with Tommy later after I have Tommy on. That would be so much fun. And I can't wait to come on your show. So
yes.
Oh yeah, can you tell them about that? Did we talk about that? Like you're kind of starting a podcast, or?
Yeah, so this is a bit different. The Shell Spooky Stories is more like animated, me telling stories. Whereas now we're doing a After Dark Archives, is what we're calling it. And it's where we actually interview people that are in this world and find out about their stories. So it's really
I love
exciting.
that. Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Go full on X-Files with it. So I've given Tom full reign to go as crazy as he wants with it. So
with all the design. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, what you're doing it's just so important, because like I said, it's just people needing, there's so many people out there that have similar experiences, similar stories, they've seen something and they need someone to talk to about it. And it really, really does help. So you might think it's just telling something spooky, but it actually is part of, someone's journey, and it's important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And I hope that this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Definitely.
All right. Well, I will I'm going to say goodbye and then we can chat like afterwards. Okay. Well, thanks guys for tuning in, and remember, until next time, the truth is out there, God is with you, and everyone always ends up in the kitchen. You have been listening to Sasquatch and Sourdough. I'm Christina, and thank you so much for tuning in. Sasquatch and Sourdough is so much more than just a podcast. We're a community of kindred spirits, united by our curiosity and fascination with the extraordinary. And we want to bring you into the conversation. So whether you've had a brush with the unexplainable, seen something that you can't quite wrap your head around, this is your space. We invite you to join us as we break bread and break down the barriers between the known and the unknown. If you want to share your story, you can email us at sasquatchandsourdough@gmail.com or send us a DM on Instagram. Until next time, remember, the truth is out there, God is with you, and everyone always ends up in the kitchen.